Hi, and welcome to our first episode of The Value Creators in 2025. This episode has been shot in our new studio and offices. Welcome, Rosa Villalobos, Head of Macquarie Luxembourg. It's really a pleasure to welcome you today.
Thank you, Stefan, for inviting me, and thank you, LPA team, for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here and honored to be in the new studio with you today.
Fantastic. Let's get started. So, what can you tell our audience about Macquarie?
Good, but Macquarie, as you may all know, some of you, is an Australian investment bank. We are, and the part that I am is the non-banking part, so the Macquarie Asset Management. But Macquarie, in terms of numbers, just to tell you a few numbers, we are 55 years of unbroken profitability. We are present in around 34 countries. We have around 20,000 employees. And in terms of Macquarie Asset Management, we have around 574 billions of euros of assets under management. Now, Macquarie, as you know, in the Macquarie Asset Management, we have a few of the products. We have infrastructure, we have real estate, we have credit, we have agriculture, we have equity, we have multi-assets, and we have secondaries also in infrastructure. Now, what we are mainly doing in Macquarie Asset Management is that we really look for the long term of our investments, and we're really looking and provide positive outcome for our investors, our portfolio companies, and our communities. We have around 170 assets worldwide, so we are a global operator, but we have local expertise.
Wow, that's quite impressive. And since you're heading the Luxembourg office, what can you tell us about this local infrastructure?
Yeah, so in Luxembourg, we started in 2005 with the first office and the first few companies. At that time, we only have a few holding companies. Since then, we started to grow slowly, again, growing the number of companies here in Luxembourg, having specialists, mainly finance people, governance, and tax people. Since Brexit, everything started to change and accelerate, as for many other asset managers. So what happened that we established our own AFN here in Luxembourg. We established around 5 branches in Europe, mainly distribution. And we started to expand the teams that we have here in Luxembourg. So we started to have compliance, we had to have risk, group finance people here. So we are now around 60 people in total. So on the infra part of the business with real estate and credit, we are around 38 people. Macquarie bought a business here in Luxembourg for the equity and multi-assets around 2018, which around 30 people. So that's the total of 60 people that we are based here in Luxembourg, in Macquarie Asset Management. We mainly have on the infra, on the real assets, around 80 funds here in Luxembourg. We have around in our AFE 22 billion euros of assets under management. We have around 200 holding companies here in Luxembourg. And like I said, we operate mainly through the license that we have here with the CSSF, but we also have a license here with Commission Assurance, which is also, again, another regulator here in Luxembourg. So we mainly operate this from the center of Luxembourg and working with the whole ecosystem of Luxembourg.
This is why we really appreciate to have guests like you explaining us your success story, where you started, how you have evolved, and also all the different kind of statistics you have just shared. Really, also again here, very impressive. Mm-hmm. When we look at a little bit now the portfolio company perspective, before investing, what are you interested in, taking into account your verticals and what you shared with us, and how do you source a deal, what are the KPIs you're looking at?
So we're going to be mainly focusing on the infra part of the business, the infrastructure asset class. So mainly we put it in 4 categories, put in 4 buckets, okay? So we are looking at the aging infrastructure. We are looking at demographic changes. We are looking at digitalization and the impact of environmental changes, environmental impacts that we have. So when we look at these 4 categories, so we look at opportunities between these 4 categories. Okay, so we identify the assets. We are a global, again, company. So we have the global connectivity, but we have the local presence. We not only have financial people, we have engineers, we have industry experts. It means that we share all this knowledge. And if you can imagine, you can have a port, state of the art in one country, which they have the technology that they almost don't use people, everything is automated. We learn from this in another port that we have in another country. The same with an airport, when we have infrastructure in airports. And when you learn from one airport, you can leverage on that experience and knowledge in another airport somewhere else. So I think the fact that we say we have around 170 assets, if I tell you and I read a few other numbers, in terms of number of people that daily use our assets, it's around 290 million people on a daily basis that use the assets that we manage. If I tell you another number, which may be relevant for Luxembourg, you know what is 34% of the population in Luxembourg, more or less? 230,000 people are either employed or contracted by the assets that we manage. So that tells you, I mean, we are one of the biggest asset managers in infrastructure. So I tell you the scale of the impact that we have, again, for our investors, our portfolio companies, and our communities.
Yeah, so quite in the center of the game, crucial, really with impacts also. And so now, I mean, that's a bit the theme of our show, creation of value. So how do you do that? I mean, you mentioned also the diversity of your teams, how you can leverage a success story in one country and then import that in another one. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so again, finally, mainly is looking at the opportunities. How do we find the opportunities on those thematics? So that's the important thing, is looking at those opportunities. When we look at those, identify those opportunities, we mainly deploy the teams in looking at those opportunities, but it's mainly looking how do you deliver additional value. So once you identify the opportunity, you say what are the actions that we can take on that asset. And sometimes some of the assets, they need additional capex, they need modernization, they need additional investments that they can grow. So that's the actions that we can create, and that creates value because we leave the assets normally in a better stage that we bought them, because after they will, again, go with another fund, or funds are long-term. And that's one of the key. Infrastructure is a long-term asset class. When you look at a long-term asset class, you may have a period, what happened in COVID with the airports, the activity went to zero, and it took a long time to go back to numbers of pre-COVID. But when you are in the long term, that turbulence can be dispersed on the long term. So that means that your return on that asset, you're still creating value because your asset at the end of the investment period is in a better stage, even though that has some turbulence. So again, so when we look at the opportunity, we take actions, and the outcomes, again, they are assets, they are in a better position. They have contributed to those thematics where they are key for society. If you look, for example, when we talk about the population, the demographic change, we've been investing in hospitals. When we look at digitalization, we've been investing in data centers, which they are essentials. In green investment, we have a specific team dedicated for green investments. Of course, not only solar or wind, but the energy transition, the new emerging technologies, they need investment if we want to be looking for alternatives for the future. So that's, again, when you look at the opportunity, the actions, and the outcome, that's what we are focused on.
Yeah, quite clever. So to have your mega trends and then to know what you could apply, you have a dedicated playbook, which then you can adapt depending on. Okay, that all makes sense. Would you have, or would you like to share 2-3 examples of how you created value in different firms and all kinds of sectors?
Yeah, of course. So let me start with one question for the first case that I want to share.
With pleasure.
Do you know how much a piano weighs, or a horse, more or less?
Not really, unfortunately, not playing.
Okay, well, I can tell you. It's around 530 kilos. Okay? So what happened is that and I'm going to go for waste. This is the first case example that I'm going to talk about. We, individuals, one of us, on an average, on an annual basis, weighs 530 kilos, which is like a piano, a grand piano, a horse, per year in municipal waste. Okay? Now, the EU and England set up a target of 60% of the waste, municipal waste, to be recycled by 2030,
2030.
which
Okay.
is around the
Yes,
corner.
close.
This is the opportunity. What does it mean? Well, companies there on the waste industry, they need to expand because, again, we have those targets that we need to continue upscaling and increasing the capacity for recycling. So this is the case in Ballpark, an asset that Macquarie bought. And again, look at the opportunity. We need to increase. This asset needs to expand. What are the actions that we have taken on that asset since we bought it? Well, we tripled the capex. They are expanding. They are doing acquisitions, strategic acquisitions. So again, we are deploying capital to do those acquisitions. Themselves, they are looking at the renewable energy. So the outcomes is themselves, they are making the capacities to be able to produce more, to recycle more waste, including plastic PET. And they are also, they say the fleet are changing to electric fleet. So again, the outcomes is that we are leaving an asset that is creating more capacity to continue increasing the amount of waste that is recycled and doesn't go into the landfill.
There's always great examples when you apply also to yourself those kind of recipes and then also further down the kind of chain. Okay.
Yeah. Another example that I can talk about is asset Gas, which is the gas distribution network in Germany. So it's an asset that we bought Macquarie between 2001 and 2016 for the first time. So we already helped that asset to become independent for RWE. So again, at the opportunity, this asset serves 20% of the German energy gas distribution, the gas distribution through the network as an operator. So what happened is that they also have around 160 customers that they are energy intense consumers. Those, they need to target, and they will target the net zero. So the opportunity, again, how do we help them? So the actions that we are taking is that we are helping Gas, which we bought again in 2022, and we double already the capex, so that's the actions that we are taking, to the network that we're using to be able to use that for green hydrogen. So that means that adapting that network is an investment, again, but that's creating the value that for the long term, we are going to be able to, these 160 high intense industries, energy consumptions, to be achieving the net zero. So again, the outcome is opportunity, making capex, making the facilities better, and to increase the capacity and helping those other industries to reach the net zero.
And that's again something very concrete where you show that you're ahead of the curve, taking also some new trends into consideration, adapting before really it's either too late or even way before than the competition or other countries. And in the end, it's really kind of how do you, let's say, help to reindustrialize also Europe, other regions in the world. And that's really in the end so important, a bit like your example about the wastes, where because sometimes ESG or impact have become so complicated where people have simply lost the overview. So what is it good for, and what concretely can we do? And this is really kind of bringing back some real value or kind of understanding.
Yeah, and to give you one more example also that is very, very practical is EDNO, which is the Greece electricity distribution network. And in EDNO, we bought, well, the Greek government was looking for some partners because they needed, again, to modernize the network, to offer a better service for the customers. So we bought 49% of the assets. Since then, the actions that we have taken is that we are helping them to deploy, it's around 3 billion Australian dollars of deployment in a multi-year to, again, modernize the network, to have a better service for the customers. And we are helping them because we have experience, again, in other assets in other regions. The outcomes of this is that they are already deploying, again, double capex since we bought the asset. They are implementing the smart meters in the housing. And again, helping there also another example that we have a lot of experience with health and safety. So we help those assets to better manage, again, on the health and safety programs because, again, we can leverage of what we have learned through across other regions and other asset classes between the infrastructure.
I'm sure that our colleague Evie will be pleased to hear about what you're doing in Greece and also to help also on that kind of safety part, which might sometimes be a little bit undervalued and in the importance of that whole kind of value chain. But those are really fantastic examples. So concrete, it shows the power of CapEx and with the, let's say, combined of the vision combination, what you can really achieve. And that is what we like here to push forward.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot for all those great examples.
No, thank you, Stefan, and thank you for having me here today.
Fantastic. Thanks a lot, Rosa.
Thank you.
And see you very soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.